Everyone in home care is talking about AI. What should we automate? Which tools should we use? Are virtual assistants replacing traditional employees? How do we do more with fewer people? Those are important questions, but we're going to learn from our speaker today. They're not the first questions we should be asking. Today's guest, Debbie Miller, has spent nearly 2 decades building one of the largest home care organizations in Tennessee. She's also the founder of 52 Weeks Marketing and co owner of Helper Heroes, providing virtual support for home care owners. Along Debbie's home care journey, she discovered something that completely changed how she thinks about growth. Today, she's going to introduce what she calls the growth infrastructure blueprint. So sit back and get ready to hear how she built it. Thank you so much, Debbie, for being here today. We really appreciate it. You have built an incredible agency right here in my home state of Tennessee. So thank you for all of your wealth of information that you're bringing to the table today. Tell me, what caused you to begin thinking differently about growth and where technology and virtual workers fit into home care?
Like a lot of people, like you mentioned earlier, I definitely felt the pressure to get automated, consider AI, virtual assistant, you name it, I've done it. And what I've learned, however, is that before you add AI, automation, another platform, another employee, a virtual professional to your agency, you really need to understand how the work should actually be designed and whether your current infrastructure can support the growth that you're trying to achieve. So I can tell you this, and I've worked with a lot of agency owners across the country, AI won't fix a broken org chart. All right. It won't clarify poorly defined roles, and it's not going to eliminate organizational bottlenecks. And the matter is that by adding technology to your agency where the wrong people are doing the wrong work can really help you do the wrong things faster and stunt your growth, which is what we're really going to talk about today. So,
Yeah.
for many growing home care agencies, this is where what I see happens is this is the hidden growth barrier. So that's what really started me down this journey. I stopped asking what new tool do I need or who else do we need to hire to get things off that plateaued model and get growing again. And so I instead of asking those questions, I started asking a more fundamental question. What does the infrastructure of my agency need to look like for the next stage of growth that I was after? So today, what I'm going to do is show the framework that I've built to answer that question. And it's evolved. So I kind of added bits and pieces to it. And whenever we're feeling a little bit of a pinch, we go back to the fundamentals here, which I'm going to lay out in this 9-step process. So where, often where growth is getting stuck is really the answer. It's not an answer that, well, we need another person. It's better to look at it's probably an infrastructure problem. And the 9-step process is really going to help folks.
I'm
So
excited.
let's take a look at this slide. And the first thing I want folks to recognize is that not every agency has the same infrastructure problem, right? Where you are on the growth journey matters. So I think of it in 3 different stages. All right. So there's build, optimize, and scale. In the build stage, the owner is the one typically doing everything, right? There might be 1 or 2 other people, and they are feeling the pressure of all of this volume. And building is tricky because every hire feels expensive to an owner. I've been there. I know when we finally start making a little bit of money and we have to dig deep into our pockets and, now pay another to bring on another layer of support. And it is expensive. And as the business can grow fast, the owner cannot personally keep up. That's basically it. And I meet owners all the time that say, but nobody can do it as well as I can. And I say, that's fine, as long as you're happy with where you are, because you cannot grow and just keep adding on more work. Then comes optimize. All right. So this is where a lot of successful agencies get stuck. So you've got a team, you've got a few good people, revenue's grown, but everybody is busy, right? Leaders are wearing multiple hats, lots of responsibilities. have accumulated and growth starts to flatten. I'll show you the graph here in just a minute. So this is where the infrastructure that got you where you are now, but it's not the infrastructure that's going to get you where you want to be. All right. So we want to get that turned around and get growing again. And then there's scale. This is where the infrastructure becomes a real competitive advantage. Roles are much clearer. You've got systems and processes that are predictable. You've got leaders who are actually leading, right? And then growth is less dependent on one or two people. I call them the heroes of the company, and everything depends on them. That is not a good place to be. So let's take a look at those folks in that early part of the journey, the build phase. And so this is what growth kind of looks like, a saw blade, right? So you gain a client, you gain a bunch of clients, and everybody drops what they're doing to staff the case, and marketing stops, recruiting gets pushed aside, the owner gets pulled into operations because they don't want to lose the client. And then what happens is they lose momentum. And if you lose a client, you have that downward slope. So see it all the time. And so what I kind of classify this as gain, scramble, lose momentum, restart, right? So it is exciting, but the issue is it makes growth very unpredictable. So then the owner is afraid to layer on that next support. And it's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? I literally just spoke to an agency owner last week who had to pass on a 24/7. Yet he knows how much he needs that 24/7 to get to that next stage. So it's kind of this vicious cycle. And then you've got the folks that are in the optimized phase, right? They've grown sometimes pretty quickly. And then you start to see that plateau. And then what they do is they blame it on the market. Maybe they blame it on staffing. I was kind of in this situation. Now, these numbers will vary. It depends, right? We often see people stuck between the 1.5 and 3 million. I don't know if you see that, Nikki, but this is what happens, right? And they just have overgrown their capacity for more volume. And so they start to see a plateau. So I was here, obviously a much, much higher revenue. When we came out of COVID, we were plateaued at around 11 million. And so this is where I started to really look at this growth infrastructure model that we're going to talk about today. So the common thread in both the stages is this: activity can create spikes, but infrastructure creates momentum. And the whole purpose of the blueprint is to help us build the capacity to sustain growth that we're working so hard to create. So
I think that's yeah, I was just going to say, I think that's really interesting because most owners are going to immediately assume that they need another employee. We've heard that so many times. And I know that we have a lot of our customers who struggle with that problem. One of the things I hear the most is, I don't have time to take a vacation.
Yes.
So I can see how a lot of the agency owners are going to, hit that wall and think along those same lines. So what does hitting the growth barrier actually look like?
Does this look like the owner you're talking about?
Probably, yeah. Can't put anything down.
Trying to
Yeah.
manage all of these, right? They say, well, I've built a successful agency, but we've hit a wall. My people are overwhelmed. They're overwhelmed. They don't know whether to hire another employee. Do I need a manager to manage my people? Or do I need technology? Do I need AI? Do I need something else? Do I need a virtual assistant? So those are all the things. This is what it sounds like. And the danger is that when we get under pressure, that something else that you see, I should underline that, becomes whatever it is that's being talked about loudest around the office, right? So right now it might be, do we need AI, or people don't really even know how it fits, but I think we need some automation, or we need to hire a virtual assistant. A lot of people are doing that. And when I went through this, that was kind of where I was going. I was ready and open and did try a lot of things, but I kept coming back to, we've got to really resolve the infrastructure and ensuring that the right people are doing the right things. So that's really important. So here are some of the symptoms that are pretty recognizable by probably a lot of folks that are watching this. Everybody's busy, but the important work is still not getting done. Lots of loops not getting closed. Leaders are spending their days reacting. When I say leaders, I mean those key people, those key staff members that you count on a regular basis. They're, you know, they're so overwhelmed that the basics aren't getting done. Like the recruiting isn't being consistent, client issues aren't being managed, marketing becomes inconsistent, all of those things that we hear about, you know, where folks just say, I don't have time. And yet these are the really, really important things that create that growth. So those are what the symptoms sound like. So if you're
Yeah.
hearing those kinds of things in your office, this is where we want to be looking at. And we might have people, your key people doing the wrong things. Okay. And this is, I see this a lot. So you may have very capable folks like schedulers, recruiters, care managers, and a large part of their day is being consumed by data entry, you know, reminding caregivers that they need to be where they need to be, or reports, or following up, confirming shifts, all that kind of stuff, managing their inbox, all kinds of other things that aren't or that they're not working on, but yet they're doing these other things. And these other tasks matter. And I'm not saying that they're unimportant, but they may not require that the person that you hired for all those that great talent that they have, where they bring, you know, good judgment to the table and problem solving and relationships and leadership, that they're being underutilized. And what I see a lot, this is so common. We have a lot of folks who are paying their employees, say $60,000. So your $60,000 employee is doing $14 an hour work. All right.
Mhm.
And yeah, so the question becomes, so what work truly needs this person, this important person, and what work can simply get done well and consistently? And now, how might that get done and by whom? So that distinction is where the opportunities really start to appear when you really analyze this.
That's interesting. I was thinking about it kind of backwards too, because I remember when I was getting my master's and I had to do a human resources plan. One of the things that we talked about in school was taking your employees and do you do a annual review? And if you do, how do you do it? And if you don't, you know, if you have an employee during that annual review process that is a really hard worker, but they just don't match the skill set that they're in, what do you do with
Mhm.
them? And I was like, you don't get rid of a really hard worker. You just find a skill set that works for them, that matches. Because right now, I think one of the hardest things to do is to find somebody who wants to work and wants to show up and is loyal, right? So you're speaking that same language. This is just looking at it from a different perspective, I think. Especially right now, we've got that wage mix, right? Everybody's talking about wages have increased for their staff. And they're thinking about they have too many people that they're spending a lot of time doing tasks that one, they weren't hired to do and probably don't enjoy. And two, because they're paying, again, such high wages that it holds them back from building more infrastructure that will help them grow. So, did you find how you can help that employee with this situation
Yeah. Oh my
or the
goodness.
business owner?
The breakthrough didn't happen in a strategy meeting. It happened walking through my own office. And so
Mm,
what I did, and what I would, you know, the way I looked at it is the way a lot of other owners looked at it. I was listening to the problems. We need another person. Scheduling's overwhelmed. Recruiting needs help. I can't keep up, right? Every problem sounded like
mhm.
a staffing request. So I stopped and I literally walked through my office. I stopped and I sat with folks and I just listened and watched what they were doing. And I paid attention to what my best people were actually doing. It wasn't what their job descriptions outlined, I can tell you that, right? It was literally the stuff that was on their screens and their inboxes. It was all that stuff that they were doing every day, was a lot of that other minutia that I was talking about earlier, right? I
So you
started
watched
seeing,
and you listened.
yeah,
I just want to reiterate that's important. Watching and listening. You and I talked about that before I hit the record button, so people won't know that. But we did. We talked about the importance of being there, watching how other people are using the tools, listening to how their day is going and what they're doing on the day in and day out. Those are very important things
Exactly.
for anyone to do.
Yes. As a matter of fact, just this morning, my director of operations and I were talking, and we had a little bit of an issue over the weekend. And something came up where it appeared that it could potentially be a training issue. So she said to me, I'm actually going to go sit in the next two classes and
Hmm.
just hear for myself how certain things are being addressed. So there's a prime example, Nikki, how important that is, even in my side, my phase of my business. We're still always listening, learning, and process improving. You have to continually evolve. So what I started to see were my expensive talent doing the work that didn't require expensive talent. Okay. I saw the people who were great at relationships, problem solving, and all of those great things following up on routine items, confirming shifts, entering data, preparing reports. So no one was doing the wrong thing. Like they didn't do anything wrong. The work has just grown faster than the actual design of our organization. And that was the moment I realized I didn't have bad people. So it wasn't a people problem. All right. I had an infrastructure problem. And a lot of people that I talk to have the same situation. So when I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. And so what I did was I asked the question, how do we free our great people to do the work that they were actually hired to do? And that's what led us down the path of our 9-step blueprint process.
I love that you thought that way, that you thought, I'm not just going to leave this like it is. I'm going to find a better way to utilize my staff, to utilize their talents and their skills. And I don't know your staff personally, but I can only imagine that that would make them feel more invested in the company when you said, you know what, your skill set's better than this.
Exactly.
Let's put it to work the way it should be.
Yeah. They saw light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, they really truly did. And they felt so heard through the exercise that will roll out here. But when we think about infrastructure, there's a lot to it. It's not just people. People is one component. People or support, whatever that looks like, right? Whether you're hiring locally, whether you're hiring virtually. And then we have to look at processes and systems. Very important also. Technology, whether it's AI or software or any kind of software or automation, is also a factor here because there may be easier, more efficient ways to do things that will ultimately save time. So all of these things you're going to be exploring. But at the end of the day, what I found through this exercise that was key, and it was to your point, is the role clarity. When they started to realize, oh my gosh, somebody actually realizes what all I'm doing and where my talents are and what I should be focusing on. So bringing that accountability also to all of those things is really key. The problem is infrastructure, and we've got to start there. So when we talk about the people, whether and the technology, I just kind of wanted to highlight this since this is all on so many people's mind. I feel like there's such pressure on owners to like they're going to miss the boat if they don't like have the technology or AI or whatever it is. And I see a lot of people going down the path and they go, they may sign a contract with this company or that company, and now they're on the hook for $2,000 a month, and they don't have the infrastructure to manage this kind of implementation. So when we think about this, we think about people. Those are the people that are going to do the work, that are requiring judgment, relationships, leadership, creativity, empathy, and expertise. That's your talent. Virtual professionals can be a dedicated human. And it's so funny because a lot of times when I talk about helper heroes, I talk about we place virtual assistants with agency owners, and they think it's AI. No, this is a real human person that's managing and freeing up some capacity so that your talent can focus on what they were hired to do. And then you've got AI and automation. So think about that technology bringing some proficiencies, efficiencies to those tasks that are repeatable, process driven, data oriented. All right. So I just kind of wanted to share that. But at the end of the day, it's the infrastructure, right? So all of this is part of that infrastructure. This is your competitive advantage. All right. It's not simply, well, I've got AI. What does that mean to your client who's pissed because you haven't returned a call or didn't close a loop, right? It's
Yep.
knowing where AI belongs and what it does to help you run a better business. And if it doesn't, don't consider it. So now a lot of times and I've talked to a lot of owners where they're like, wow, this sounds really good, Debbie, but how do I even bring this up? Because I'm afraid to rock my boat with my staff, right? I don't want them to feel like and this is some of the common things that I've actually heard this from people, that they're afraid that they're going to be replaced. Is my job at
Yep.
risk? Does management think I'm failing? Will I lose the work that I'm good at? All of those things, right? That people will hear, or they're kind of believing a phantom. As a matter of fact, this whole idea of putting the blueprint together and doing a presentation and a workbook, which we'll talk about, actually have a workbook for owners to take their teams through the 9-step process. So I had a discovery call for Helper Heroes, and this owner was concerned about all of these things. He said, I just don't know how to bring it up, and I don't want them to feel threatened. So the conversation has to really change, right? And stop saying what we're bringing something new to the table. What we want to do is uncover the hidden growth inside the existing team. And that's where the blueprint really comes in. So how much growth is already sitting inside the team I have, but buried under the wrong work that they're doing? Okay, so that's kind of what I really want for you to approach this. It's more of a support for the current team. So the conversation really changes. Okay, we're bringing in. You don't want to say we're bringing in help or we're going to bring in a new system to make things better. We want to say instead, we're investing in you. All right.
Yeah, that doesn't sound as much like a red flag, right? Because
Exactly. This one shift totally lowers the defenses of your team so that the scheduler can hear, well, we want you solving staffing problems and building caregiver relationships. And these are the kinds of things that you'll want to communicate to them, right? Not spending hours on routine follow-up. We want the recruiter to hear, we want you hiring the best caregivers that are going to provide quality care to our clients, not buried in administrative work. Um,
yes,
and leaders that can hear, we want you leading the team, getting us to the next level. So this is the message right here. It's our goal is to help every member of this team spend more time doing what they do best. So that's what led to the 9-step process, right? And it's called the Growth Infrastructure Blueprint. And this is the optimized edition. I actually have a build edition also with it, an accompanying workbook just for future reference. But what we want to do, and so here are the 9 steps. All right, we're going to go into a lot more detail on each of these steps here as we go through this vlog. But just on the outset here, that what we first want to do is create trust and alignment, like we just talked about, right? Then we identify the strengths within our team. This is eye-opening, and this is very empowering, back to what you said earlier. Then we make the work visible, find out exactly what everybody's actually doing. And then only after that do we identify the bottlenecks, okay? Once you start to see what's slowing us down or where we've got some issues, then you're going to start to organize the opportunities. And from there, design roles, build ownership, and create the roadmap for success. So notice what we don't do. We don't begin with a job opening. Okay. And I see a lot of people, and I'll do discovery calls and they'll say, well, I want to hire such and such. And I'll say, well, talk me through your infrastructure. And I end up opening their minds and they go, you know what? Yeah, I think that I agree. Let's do that. That makes more sense. But if they go through this exercise, it becomes so apparent. It's as clear as a bell. It's really, really, it's the most motivating team exercise you'll ever do. Okay. By the end, the answer to who or what should do this becomes much clearer because you've earned the answer instead of just guessing at it or listening to the one person that's completely overwhelmed And, it might be your DO who says, well, I need a manager. No, you just need your great people doing the right things. So
I
that's,
love this. I love this. I love that it's not just a theory because I'm a planner. I plan absolutely everything. And I look at this and I'm like, oh, it's a plan. This is amazing. So it's a process that you actually created step by step. There's obviously 9 of them right here. So I know that this is the same process that you implemented for your agency.
mm,
And since your agency is so successful, I already know that it works. But for our audience today, can you walk us through each of these steps?
yes. And I'm actually going to show you my org chart before and after.
Oh, yay.
And I'm going to show you our outcomes before and after. It's really tells the story. But this is the step by step, okay? And we'll start with step 1, which is about trust. So before we go to any of the other tasks, we want to explain to our team why we're doing this. Growth should feel like an opportunity, not a threat. And that's the key here, right? And every year I cast the vision for my team, and we do quarterly updates. So everybody knows where we are. So everybody is invested in the plan. And we actually, before I come up with the strategies and everything, I meet with every single department. And so they feel like they've contributed to it. So just like that, this is important, right? Where they're part of this exercise, they become part of the solution. So we definitely want people to understand the win before they see the change. All right. So that's a really important step. Then we bring the right people together in the room, not just the people with the biggest titles. The people who understand how the work actually flows are those doing the work. Scheduling sees one reality, right? Recruiting sees a different one. Client care, finance, marketing, operations, they all see from their perspective. No single person sees the whole organization. Certainly as you get to be a bigger size, you've got a lot of people doing a lot of different things and no one person knows everything that's going on. So that's an important one.
Yeah, that's true at every business.
Exactly. Exactly. So this step is one of the most important. I love this. So before I ask what somebody's doing, we want to ask what everyone is best at and let other people weigh in on this person. It's really cool for somebody to hear their colleagues talk about what they do well. But you don't want them to be shy about explaining also for themselves what they do well. What that does is helps you understand what they really want to do also, because they become very territorial about what they do well and they want to probably do more of it. So because if I start with the job description, what happens is we get tempted to preserve all the tasks that we've accumulated over time. That's that I need to preserve my job. Where
Yep.
if we talk about what the person's strengths are, I can protect the work that truly requires me to do this job. Okay. So a lot of times organizations don't grow by protecting tasks. They grow by protecting talent. Because at the end of the day, if somebody is continually doing these, not that they're not important, but more menial tasks, they will
Mhm.
and feel like they're not doing a good job on the things that they were hired to do. They're going to be dissatisfied, unmotivated, and will ultimately probably start looking for another job. All right.
They're going to burn out.
Yep.
They're not happy with what they're doing. They're going to burn out a lot faster.
Yes. So many times I've interviewed over the years, I've interviewed folks that have left, say, assisted living, memory care, and they come to home care. Why? Because at the end of the day, as hard as they worked and as much as they tried at that facility, they felt like they were providing inadequate care because of the way they were staffing that facility. So it's a
Wow.
similar situation here. We want folks to really be doing what they want to be doing and what they're good at. And only then do we inventory the work. So that's where we do this, where we want to capture every recurring task and put it on a sticky note. And in the workbook, I talk about having different color sticky notes for different departments that represent different departments. And then what you're going to capture is whatever they're doing on a daily basis, weekly basis, and monthly basis, even unexpected things that come up, everything. Don't judge it. Don't solve it. Don't decide where it should go. Just capture the reality of what they're experiencing. And this is very eye-opening, especially for the cross-functional team to see all that the other folks are doing, right?
Yeah.
Especially marketing, when marketing and business development looks at all the stuff that's get the operational teams doing there, they have a much more appreciation for what they bring to the table. So that's
Yeah.
the real breakthrough here. When the work that was invisible becomes visible, it's life changing, really, to an organization. And once you can see it, then you can redesign it. That's the key.
That's yeah, that's fascinating. We talk with agency owners all the time, and I don't know that we've ever heard anyone suggest identifying strengths before job descriptions. That's pretty cool. You're beginning with the people, and then you're moving on to the task, which I think we kind of discussed a little bit earlier, but I just want to reiterate how important that is. It's not like you're reinventing the wheel, but you're looking at this through a different lens, right?
Mhm.
So this makes sense when you're in the optimization phase, but what about new owners who are in the building phase?
It actually works really well also. And obviously, they're going to be more focused on the task than the people. A lot of the tasks they're carrying themselves, but they'll soon see how many tasks that they and their small little group is doing, and they'll be able to identify the bottlenecks, why they've got that downward piece in the saw, right? And
Hmm.
so they're going to be able to say, okay, I need some support so that downward piece doesn't happen, and we can keep the momentum up, and then ultimately that's where we start to see growth. So these are the bottlenecks that hold people back when we are, really starting to recognize how much a certain, and this is where you see those heroes come to light, where they're just carrying too much, and either they're going to burn out, or and then what you have are slip ups, things that don't go well, and it's unfortunate, and then they feel bad, and really what it wasn't, it was no fault of their own, they're just doing way too much. So this is kind of what it looks like when we get to the identifying the bottlenecks. This is really cool. So you sort of organize it, and as you can see here, and I've got an example like this in the workbook. So you start to put the different categories together, and then using little sticky notes, like little sticky circles, you begin to identify the work that's got to stay with that particular person because it requires their judgment or their particular expertise. But then some of the work you'll identify that could either be delegated or shared. And so those you can identify with a yellow and green dot. So then the yellow and green opportunities move to the opportunity board, which we're going to get to here. And so we group similar work together by category and then step back. This is where something really cool starts to happen. 20 scheduling related sticky notes stop looking like 20 little issues, and they start looking like a scheduling support role, right? Maybe a scheduling coordinator that can be managing the dashboard, that can be calling and managing call offs as they happen, where the main scheduler can be doing the customer facing work of scheduling new clients and client services and all of those amazing things. You might have 15 recruiting tasks that are becoming now a recruiting support type opportunity. So cluster of data really helps you to understand, where those opportunities are to begin to carve out a willow. All right. So now when we go to step 7, let me just do that a little bit. There we go. Okay. Now we start to design the roles, and we're doing it intentionally. That's what's so amazing. We define the purpose, the responsibilities, the success measures, what the support actually looks like. What is it, full time? Is it a part time person? Is it a shared person? Is it technology, automation? Is it a virtual person that can manage that, or some combination? In my cases, and when I take you through my org chart, I'll share with you some of the optimization through automation that happened that saved us having to actually hire a person for a particular support needs. But what's cool is we're continually bringing the team along with us, right? A change that makes perfect sense on paper can still fail if people don't understand how it makes their day better. So they're going to be part of all of this and say, oh my gosh, I see the light. So then we start to translate the redesign into real wins, more time recruiting, more time supporting caregivers, and so on. So that's when we really prioritize and show everybody what's in it for them. Okay. And that's important, right? So you can see from these two pictures, I love these, where they went
Yeah.
from really overwhelmed and reactive and stretched very thin to, wow, they recognize what I bring to the table. And now I'm in a position where I can do that. All right. And now we are going to be able to create our roadmap. So we could prioritize. Not everything changes at once. So this doesn't happen overnight. So just FYI. And like I said, Nikki, earlier, we're constantly process improving and we're working toward our ultimate. So as we reach new revenue targets, we already know the layer of support that we need to bring to the table. So when we get to this much in revenue, we know, or if we get to this much in our Medicaid performance, which is part of our growth strategy for this year, then we know that's that next layer that we had already planned for. So that's what's really empowering about doing this is when to make the next move, and it's not that what comes first, the chicken or the egg.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, I think it's empowering not just for your agency owners, but also for their team,
Yes.
right? When they're going from that, that picture you showed a minute ago where it's like the day, another day to, oh, I'm happy to go to work today because I'm gonna get so much accomplished and there are things that are meaningful to me, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I helped to create this role that I am now shining and really contributing to the success of the organization. So they see their part in the overall performance and success of
Yeah.
the company. So they take ownership, a lot more ownership as a result of it, for sure.
And that
Oh,
investment is gonna show, just forever, for however long they're with your company. And I think that's going to create a longer tenure with those employees
100%.
because like you said, one, they help build their job, right? But two, that creates that investment in their job, makes them happier to come to work, gives them new purpose, I think, in what they're
Mhm.
doing.
I can tell you
So
in all the years that I've been in this business for 19 years. I'm in my 19th year. We have never had a calmer office. By the way, we're doing more sales than we've ever done. We've never had a
that's
calmer
awesome.
office, better, more positive morale than we do now because of all of this infrastructure work that we've done. And,
Yeah.
people leave at the end of the day, and I'll talk you through, what that looks like in here in just a second. So again, building the roadmap, this is all part of the exercise, and there are some steps that will help you get to a plan that looks pretty much like this. Now, I wanted to share this with you because this is pretty interesting that when you think about the economics here, right? So when you do this exercise and you find that your key leaders, those key people that you put a lot of trust in, and you find out, say you have 5 of those folks that you lean on in my organization, that's what we have at my size. It might be 3, it might be 2, whatever it is. And you find that there's 20% of the tasks that they do a day that they really shouldn't be doing. That's a whole day back they get per week. That's a whole
No
day.
kidding.
Isn't that something?
Oh my goodness. What could I do with a whole day is what I'm thinking. I'm like, I could be so much more productive, get so many things off my to-do list, help so many more people.
Exactly. Exactly. This is what I mean by it's so empowering for these folks. So once you know what work should move, then and only then you can responsibly ask the question, who or what should take it on? Right. So to give them that 20% of the day back, we got to look at, okay, well, how are we going to still get that work accomplished? And that's the question. That's right. So this is how we do it. So we'll talk a little bit first here about the ripple effect, because what we want to do is move from where they were, constant firefighting. I often, when I do a presentation, I show a fireman with a big hose, right? As an owner, that's how we feel.
Right.
You got burnout, you got bottlenecks that are stunting your growth. Decisions, nobody can make a decision. Very reactive leadership and poor morale. Two, a stronger just client experience because those gaps are getting closed, right? Better caregiver retention because the folks are paying attention to the things that help you retain caregivers. Faster recruiting, more consistent marketing, all those things. At the end of the day, though, this is the big one: a much happier staff. That's
That's crucial.
yeah.
Yeah, that's crucial. So I love this. I love how you laid it all out. But tell me now, who's going to take on those tasks? That
Well, every situation's different, right? And remember, infrastructure is not just about the people. So there are going to be situations where there may be some better workflows, maybe clearer role design, where you might have two, I've seen this, two or three people doing the same darn thing. So you clearly
mm,
define it and then hold them accountable for those. And that could just save a lot of effort right there. Technology, automation, AI, yeah, there may be some opportunities there. Cross train, so that if somebody isn't able to do this particular task, that it kicks over to somebody else. Internal promotions. Once you, and I'm going to share this with you, what happened in my organization. Once you've really honed in on what the talent is, what people are really good at, then there could be great opportunities for promotion. So we can take off some of those menial tasks, put them in a promotional position where they're using those talents, and you then have that ability to move ahead. So again, it's a multitude of things. So I want to show you what happened in my organization. Okay, so as I said, I was coming out of the period of COVID, and we lost a lot of traction. All right, I was basically canceling $1 million in shifts, believe it or not. It
oh my
hurt.
goodness.
It hurt. We lost almost $3 million in traction. And we had a unique situation in Tennessee. I won't get into a lot of the details, but long story short, caregivers in Tennessee were very reluctant to get a vaccine, and a lot of our clients and our facilities really demanded it. So we lost a lot of traction. So we're really trying to build back up, and so this was my infrastructure, and at the time, we were doing 25,600 hours a month. Okay, 25,600 hours a month. This was the thing that kept me up at night. My net profit was so low. We were at
Yeah.
8%. We were paying a fortune every time we lost a scheduler. It was really hard to get people to work in the office, remember, at that time, and come back to work and all of that.
Yep.
And my scheduling team was like a revolving door. It was horrible. We couldn't stabilize it. And every time somebody left and I had to hire another scheduler, it was literally $5,000 more than the one that just left.
Oh man.
So our salaries were just at an all-time high, which affected my net profit. Of course, my hours were down, etc. So I had a total of about 23 people here in my admin staff. Okay. And so I knew where I wanted to get to. We wanted to build back up. And at the time, we were like putting out fires and all the stuff that we talked about, because in reality, you see my scheduling team there in the blue, it really wasn't enough to take on more volume. And so we're in that situation where we're canceling shifts and so on. So really, really frustrating. And that's kind of when I went, do I need a new manager? Do I need new people? Blah, blah, blah. So we did this exercise. Okay. And when we start with the talent, what I recognize first is that my director of operations, okay, did not have the ability, did not have the capacity to really take us to the next level. And I see this in a lot of organizations, particularly for long-standing employees. Owners maybe feel a sense of loyalty to that person because they started with them. They are, they've been there from the beginning. But you know what? You've outgrown them, and you have to recognize when that is the case. And so in this particular situation, I recognized that we had outgrown our director of operations for us to get to this next phase. All right. And then in this exercise, what I learned was my director of recruiting over here on the left actually had the skills and the talent to move into this position. So I saved a huge salary right there. All right. So I was paying this person like off the chart salary, director of operations by the time we were at that stage. So I was able to take that off my books, move my director of operations over to here. And then I also learned that this incredible young, funky person that was managing our facility, one of our care management facilities, had what it takes to move to my director of HR. So we were able to move her. So that just again speaks to putting people in the right place. And wow, this gave these two folks such an opportunity and a career path that they've been so appreciative over. And this has been like a 2-year process. Okay. So now what we learn now let's take a look at our recruiting department. So what we came to realize is that we wanted to bring some automation to this because there was a lot we were still doing, having our caregivers come in to orientation and do all the documentation and onboarding that way, where we could bring some automation to that. And we were actually able to shift one of these person to another role over here at scheduling. And the other two people was sort of like natural attrition. So what we ended up doing was replacing those those 3 full-time positions with 2 full-time recruiters, virtual assistant recruiters. So we offshored that. And you can imagine, so this was $150,000 in salaries that we're now paying much less. And with the use of technology, we were able to do that. Now, what's really, really interesting is with our new AI program that we are actually launching to streamline, again, the recruiting process, we'll be able to take that down to 1 recruiter here in the very near future. So, but look at the number of people that we have for supporting my business now, all right? Now, what I'm going to show you now, especially in the scheduling side, a big problem on the left side of the organization and the issue with the scheduler retention was our on-call process. We shared on-call. We did a rotation. And what would happen was whoever was on the weekend, sometimes we had to have 2 people because of our volume, they would come in on Monday burned out. And this was a big problem. And it is for a lot of people across the country. I hear about it all the time. Owners used to have no life, right? By bringing on virtual assistants that are focused on scheduling after hours and weekend on call, my scheduling team's now able to pass the baton to the folks that take care of that. And they leave at 4:30 at night. They come back at 8 o'clock in the morning. They take the baton back. And Friday night, they leave work and they come back refreshed on Monday.
Can
So
have a life and a
they have
weekend.
life again.
That's
They have a
amazing.
life again. And yet, look at this. This is what I want to show you. So this was the additional support. Okay, so we got 1 more person in finance because, as I said, one of our key strategies is in Medicaid. So we needed to bring on another biller to help with that, with our Medicaid MCOs, okay, to manage that. We brought on 5 more people in the scheduling department and another person to help with leads and with our referrals. Okay, a coordinator. All right, drum roll, please. This is where we're at. All right, we're now
I'm
doing,
pretty amazed.
yes, we are now
Wow.
doing 35,000 hours a month. We're over 8,500 hours a week. We have 29 people in total, and look at my net profit. And
That's
still,
huge.
and this is what's amazing. We are literally growing we bill bi-weekly. Every billing period, we keep adding more hours, but this is the amazing part. More of that is falling to the bottom line because as I have, and we have plans to layer on more infrastructure, it's with technology, like I said, with the recruiting. And it's so that we're getting even more efficient so we can do more with less. That's what you want to be looking at when you're talking about technologies. Is this going to help me grow is this going to help me improve my profitability? All right. If not, we need to rethink that. Okay. And then also, we know where we're going to be able to layer on, say, another virtual assistant to continue to manage the volume. So I want to show you, I put my money where my mouth is, and this is a system that really, really will help you get to the next level and get you off that barrier that's keeping you from growing. So here we are. And when it comes to the virtual assistants, there are lots of opportunities for us to support those folks that are watching this and maybe thinking, oh, wow, okay, this really helps me to operationalize this. It's not just a, a webinar and no, we, with the workbook, which we'll talk about here in just a minute, you can really work through this. But our goal with Helper Heroes is to free your best people to do the work only they can do by equipping you with folks that can do these roles: recruiting, scheduling, on-call and after-hour schedulers, intake and lead managers, finance and billing. Of a full-time person that does an amazing job. He's doing my guide billing, my long-term care billing, and VA billing. So all of those things can definitely be managed virtually, and administrative type of roles. And what I'm excited, Nikki, I'm really excited to be working with Rosemark to be partnering on creating a training program. So our virtual assistants that are working with Rosemark customers will be able to provide that foundational training before the VA even starts with you, before your virtual assistant even starts with your organization.
Yes, we are here at Rosemark are very excited about that too. We love the idea of Helper Heroes. We love working with Debbie because we have with your role as in 52 Weeks Marketing for years. So having your VAs train on our system is just that final step that's going to be able to help our agencies move on towards this new infrastructure that you've just laid out. So I know everybody's probably wondering at this point, how do they actually get started in this process? Because you've talked about the process. It's beautiful. I love the path that you've created in this plan. How do we get them moving forward with this?
Okay, this is important, right? What you don't want to do is go back and say, hey, we're going to do a reorganization. Yeah, we don't want to do that, or go sign up for some new AI program. No. What you want to do is get the right people around the table, right? And start with one question. What are we doing today that's keeping our best people from doing their best work? They'll know, right? Just start the conversation. And then, follow the steps, begin to make the work visible, capture the responsibilities, look for the bottlenecks, find the patterns. You don't have to solve everything in one meeting. This might take a couple of meetings to do it, but getting the conversation, I think, is really going to help. And because, like, as I said, we don't want this just to be a presentation that you're like, sounds really good. Debbie's got it together. Yeah, wish it. But no, we're really actually going to equip you with a step-by-step process through this guide that I put together. It's a lot of pages, but it's meant to be a workbook for the owner. There are worksheets that you can print that become your participants' worksheet. So they bring those to the table and you work through the process. You might have to do it in 2 or 3 meetings, and that's okay. But it's going to help you really accelerate your organization and determine what it is that you're going to need. So ask the questions. What do you do better than anyone else? What keeps you from doing more of it? And if those tasks disappeared tomorrow, what would you accomplish instead? And that's what's cool, because then you start to see what they are going to bring to the table to help you grow. So the workbook, I'm just showing you some of the pages that are out of the workbook. As you can see, I like walk you through step by step what this is going to look like. And you follow the bouncing ball, guys, and you should be able to do it. All right. So here is this is the email. If you would like to get the workbook, drop an email to this, take a picture of it, Dylan at 52weeksmarketingllc.com, and we will make that available to you. If you would like to have a discovery call and take a look at what we could do to help you layer on some infrastructure through our virtual assistants and our upcoming AI programs, then we'll be happy to share that with you as well. So you can schedule that with the QR code here on the screen.
That's so exciting. This has been such a great presentation. I think every presentation I do with you is always excellent. You just have such a wealth of knowledge and, like you said, 19 years of experience of being in the field and doing this from ground zero all the way up to where you are right now. This is just amazing. And I feel like everybody who listens to this is going to be able to hear something in today's presentation that they went, oh, that sounds like me, or that sounds like my staff, or that sounds like something going on at my office. And they can pull from that and then they can adapt and go, okay, you know what? Maybe it is time for me to get a copy of this growth infrastructure leadership kit so that I can make some changes here with my infrastructure. And again, this wasn't really so much a presentation about virtual assistants and staffing. It was more about the leadership. So this is a great opportunity for those leaders to really take a look at their organization, have a conversation with you and Dylan, and figure out what they can do with their own infrastructure and how they can build it. Because we know every agency is different. They all have different sizes. And this is not going to be a one size fits all. So I think having that discovery call is really important. So I would encourage everybody to scan that QR code and get that appointment set up with you guys.
As you said, I'm happy to walk people through, see where you're at. If you're stuck, start with the opportunity board, bring that to the table. That's awesome. And I can definitely walk you through some ideas based on what you've done. So yeah, great to be with you again, Nikki. Thanks for doing this for your customers. And certainly those Rosemark customers, we'd be happy to be working with you and help you continue to grow.
Thank you so much.